Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Daniel Mangana. Today is Thursday, April the 23rd, 2020. It's 4 p.m. New York time, and wherever you are in the world, thanks for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And Daniel, this is actually my second show of the day, believe it or not. I did a special edition earlier with a woman from Ireland named Abby Wynn, which was really a fascinating show to do. The reason I connected up with her is she wrote an article about the connection between the COVID virus and placebo and nocebo. And she's the only other person besides myself who talked about it. So I figured I had to interview her. And it was great. We had this really good time. Nice. It was kind of a throwback because about 2 years ago, I used to do 2 shows a day. Now, of course, I'm doing 1 show a day.
I remember when you were doing 2 shows a day. You had like a lunchtime and then the evening one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was good, but it was good to get away from it because it was a little bit too much, to be perfectly honest. But it was kind of nice to have one visit, to do it one more time.
Too much juicy goodness for one day.
Yep, exactly. And plus, yesterday I got a chance to revisit with an old friend, Joel Elston came back.
Yeah. And
that was fun. So this has been a good week for changing things up, kind of, shifting the energy around where podcasts are.
Nice.
Yeah. So
nice.
Our friend Alex King is not with us today. She's getting a medical procedure, but hopefully she'll be back with us on Tuesday. We send her all kinds of healthy and wellness thoughts and feelings and prayers and everything else that we can possibly throw away, plus some unicorn.
And unicorn magic, yeah.
So good stuff going on there. Anything new happening at your end before we dive into it?
Just been getting on with this week's 5-day challenge. That's been fun. And then I've got a virtual workshop on Saturday, which I'm looking forward to doing.
Good.
I started trying doing virtual workshops a little while ago, but this one I haven't done virtually before. But I'm excited.
Sounds great.
Excited to do it.
Okay. Good stuff happening. So our friend Alex actually gave us a possible topic. We can probably spend some time on it, but I also thought we could do a little virtual problem solving for people who didn't actually ask us to solve their problems. On Facebook, people are posting all the time about stuff, that they deal with where the law of attraction is concerned. And it's always fun to kind of take a look at
it. We never stay on the same topic anyway.
What's that?
We never stay on the same topic anyway.
Well, that's true. Yeah. This is always a conversation starter. It's true. We're freeform. But it gives us a starting point. Plus, some of these are kind of fun, kind of interesting. The first one actually that I was going to bring up isn't all that fun because it's on the topic that's been on everybody's mind lately. But I wanted to bring it in anyway just because, it's on people's minds and because it's kind of good to focus on what are solutions rather than what are the problems. So let's take a look at this one. This is one I saw in the Law of Attraction Life of Abundance group. And he says, Can anybody help me out with a question I'm struggling with regarding Law of Attraction? Just a month ago, my life was great. For the first time, I felt such gratitude that I had tears of joy. First time I ever tried that. This was my vibrational reality. And then comes COVID-19 and everything shuts down and every single aspect of my life that brought me joy was gone, just like that. So how do I understand that from an LOA perspective? If I brought COVID-19 into my life, my frequency would have had to be absolutely abysmal since it was basically the worst thing that could possibly happen to me considering my life situation. So what would you say to Michael? It's an interesting way of framing the question, really, because a lot of people, particularly in LOA circles, are very often, pretty generally in a high vibration place. So dealing with COVID-19 coming into our realm is a bit of a shock. It's a bit of a wake up. How do we explain it from an LOA perspective?
Well, I think if we strip back from just LOA and go back to universal law as a whole, it is what you say it is. For some, it's the most disastrous thing ever. For some, it's really not that big of a bother. And for some, there's opportunity to be seen in it. So if we were to pull it back a little bit, and I go back to something I've said before, the worst that can happen now hasn't changed.
True.
The things that are happening now, at its core, not man's response to it, but from a natural perspective, people are becoming ill and people are passing away. There are still more people getting ill and passing away from other illnesses, and that hasn't completely changed his world. So perhaps this is an opportunity, his or her world, perhaps this is an opportunity to let go of needing external people, places and things to create that vibration And it's an opportunity to strengthen the ability to create that vibration independently.
Yeah, I love that. That's exactly it, because we get to choose our responses, don't we? It's not like the response is forcing us.
No.
You will respond this way and only this way to the pandemic. I mean, there are certainly a lot of people who want us to be in that zone, but that doesn't mean we have to go along with that. We can still change how we're going to respond if we want to.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, once we physically manifested something, very few people have the level of creative power to change what's been physically manifested. Okay. But once something has been physically manifested, we still do have the opportunity to still have creative control or dominion over how we respond to it. And from that, plant the seeds of what we're going to experience going forward. So we can look at what we physically manifested, and with guilt, shame, upset, disappointment, sadness, or we can remember that within every opportunity, there is always advantage, because the law of nature is everything's in balance. So there's always the two polarities available to us. And whichever one we pick represents the seeds of what we're going to plant for what we reap going forward. So you can choose to see the disempowering side of the facts, or look for the empowering opportunity that is always there, because nature is always in perfect balance. Really and this isn't crapping on anyone that is going through a hard time. I know people have lost loved ones.
Yep.
People are really suffering from being locked in a set place. I know domestic violence has gone up in many places too. Divorces have gone up. Families are breaking up. All of this is happening, but we can't change those physical facts that have already manifested. Just as me speaking this has brought into people's physical reality now the opportunity to be a vibrational match to even hearing it from me.
Yep. Oh, we got a freeze here. Hopefully it's clearing up.
What about now?
Oh, I think we got it back. I think it may have been at my end. I think my computer may have been trying to do too much at one time. So.
No worries. No worries.
We'll write
All I was just saying, it's there. It's there. The choice is always there. Maybe that was the universe saying to move on, but the choice is always there.
It could be that too.
Yeah.
I agree with you. In fact, the first thought that came to my mind as I was reading it to us, to the audience, and to you, was he says, what was the way? How did he phrase it? Then comes COVID-19 and everything shuts down, and every single aspect of my life that brought me joy was gone just like that. Which points to all of his joy being externally driven.
So it wasn't really joy. It was external payoffs.
I mean, he was responding to stuff that was coming in that he liked, which, sure, there's some joy in that. But it wasn't him choosing what his response was. He was just default responding. And when you default respond, you're basically just riding the wave of whatever, the universe decides to deliver to you. If it delivers something that you like, then you respond, hooray. If the universe just delivers something you don't like, you say, oh, I'm so depressed. And that's not conscious creation. That's default creation.
He's a slave to positivity. And then as soon as the frequency changed, he was a slave to that too. This is an opportunity also to look and see how much agency you really, really have.
Yeah. He also finished it up by saying, since it was basically the worst thing that could possibly happen to me. Really? Like you have the disease and you're in the hospital dying? I don't think that's what he means. I think what he means is the life he was enjoying got shut down. That's the worst thing that could happen to him, really. My goodness. I mean, holy cow.
Again, I think it just speaks to, because that isn't, let's deal with actual facts. Being quarantined is not the worst thing that can happen to a human.
Really close, no. No.
So we're jumping at the opportunity to claim the disempowering aspect of something when the opportunity is there to see something else. So
I think that pretty much nails it. That's it.
Yeah.
Here's another one that's interesting. Now, in the midst of coronavirus and pandemics and financial situations running amok because of everything that's going on, you don't hear too much about this particular issue, but it still exists. It kind of points to the fact that life goes on. This woman writes, I am really struggling with my weight loss. It's going in the opposite direction. I need some step-by-step directions, guys. I refuse to diet. I want to do this easy.
Okay, well, she's not getting it then. I mean, people that want to have instant gratification without doing the work of learning how to create instant gratification are one of the most laughable things for me to see in action. Because you've just literally voiced your self-sabotage and masked it in, I'm gonna manifest it. I see this with money all the time in a lot of my work, because obviously financial abundance is where, generally speaking, I spend a lot more time working with people. But the whole thing of, oh no, I don't want to learn anything new. I don't want to learn any new skills. No, I just want to meditate, and I'm going to see it in the field, and then it's going to just, angels and fairies are going to deliver the dollar bills to my front porch. Now, here's the thing. It is possible to manifest that way, because everything's possible. That's what quantum potentials and infinite possibility is. However, you would have to spend the time learning how to manifest in that way. And if you've never manifested something spontaneously, then even if the opportunity to manifest it spontaneously slapped you in the face, the reticular activating system in your brain would quite literally shut down and you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't see it. So I think we take in 10 to 15 million megabits of data a second, but we can only process 6 or 7. So those millions and millions and millions of megabits are being filtered out. The second that you said, I only want it easy, you just basically said, I don't really care enough about this so-called desire to do what may be required of me in order to manifest it. What I really want is easy. I don't want the weight loss. I want to be lazy. And if that's that, then fine, be lazy and enjoy it. But know that you're probably not going to get your weight loss.
Yeah, basically it's the response, it's the request that says, like you said, I don't want to have to learn any of this stuff. I just want to wave Harry Potter's magic wand. And I want him to just manifest it for me. I mean, just wave the wand with the wand and the weight disappears and I can just eat all the bonbons that I want to eat.
But here's the thing, Walt. Harry Potter spent a lot of years at Hogwarts with very hard teachers. Look at Snape.
Of course, that's why she wants Harry to do it. She didn't want to have to do it. She wants Harry to do it.
It's just like, Harry, can you come and do it for me? And we do have guides, we do have opportunity to connect with support that can allow us to manifest that. But my contention is this, and this is why I talk about, this is not the easy way. People come to law of attraction because they want the easy way of doing things, or they come to universal law because they want the easy way of doing things. But it's not the easy way of doing things. No, it's really the more fulfilling way, in my opinion. Right? It's the most expansive way, in my opinion. It gives the biggest payoffs, in my opinion. You can lift much heavier rocks. But it's freaking hard. It's not easy because, generally speaking, we spend our life learning to do things another way. So completely unpacking the way that you see the reality, completely unpacking the way that you look at yourself and take responsibility for your world, that's a lot. It's a lot. So for those that aren't ready to put that work in, you're better off just going on an appropriate lifestyle change and hitting the treadmill.
I'll take that same message and I'll flip it around and I'll reverse the words and come up with the exact same meaning. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do is take what you said, flip it around and point out that what she is calling the easy way is what I would call the hardest way.
Yeah.
It's the hardest one because she wants something to happen in a way that the laws of the universe don't resonate with. So she's going to be waiting a long, long, long time with no results that she likes. And a lot of results she doesn't.
Or completely missing the results because your beliefs are shutting you off from witnessing the potential results.
So what she said was easy strikes me as being abysmally hard. It strikes me as being solid hard.
Definitely.
And what she's calling hard is what I call, by contrast, easy. To me, it's a whole lot easier to get into a good feeling space and focus on what I prefer rather than what I don't prefer, and not spend all this time pushing against all these things I hate, and this weight that I hate, and the foods that I hate. I can't stand kale, and all this stuff that is exhausting. That's exhausting.
I mean, the beauty of it is that how we feel about something does a lot more to shift it than what we do. So, for example, I know that my belief system is that if I eat clean and train dirty, I'll get into shape. Mm-hmm. I'm in this middle of the road place right now where I'm seeking to let go of that stricter belief and open myself up to it. But I'm still mindful of what I'm eating, but I'm doing so in a bit more of an expanded way. And I'm still opening up to other ways being there for me to create, but I'm honoring where I'm at right now and continually checking in with where I am right now to make sure that I am continually moving forward versus getting stagnant, which is just going the other way. Mm-hmm. So what do? Well, I started by looking at the microshift. What ways of eating that are more likely physically to bring me the result can I enjoy, or would I prefer over others? So I started there. What forms of physical movement do I enjoy? And therefore, it's not going to be about losing weight. It's going to be about, or getting in shape. It's going to be about enjoying an activity that has the happy byproduct of losing weight or getting in shape. And I'm starting there, and I'm going to make it more about eating what I like and honoring my body, but not restricting myself. If I want a cookie, I'll eat a cookie. But I bless the cookie, and I don't start looking, this cookie's going to make me put on pounds. No, I'm going to enjoy this cookie. And regardless of what happens, the fact that I'm enjoying this cookie is going to give me a positive space. I'd rather be happy eating a cookie than unhappy eating kale chips to get in shape. But that slight shift, which is very subtle, means that the blessing on the cookie means it can't do anything of harm to me. It can only be for my highest and greatest good.
Yes.
Right? Versus, I'm going to weigh every gram of millet and kale. Well, that energy that you've just put in it means that it's not going to function for you anyway. Or even if you did get the body that you wanted, you'd be bloody miserable. Mm-hmm. So it's striking that balance. Remember, how we feel about something as we're doing it means so much more in terms of not only the payoff, but how we enjoy or don't enjoy the payoff thereafter than what we do.
It's funny, as you're describing that last bit there, particularly with your analogy, it reminded me of something that Abraham Hicks wrote in one of their books, one of the lesser known books. And you're going to ask me what the name of the book is, and I can't remember where it is off the top of my head. But it's a book where they basically went in, if issue after issue, here's how we respond to this issue, here's how we respond to that issue, here's how we respond to the other issue. And one of the issues was weight loss. And they said something in the book that was about as controversial as I've ever heard where weight loss is concerned. They said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't remember the exact quote. You could walk into an ice cream parlor and you could ask for 100 gallons of ice cream, and you could eat 100 gallons of ice cream. And if you're in the perfectly high vibration space you need to be in, and you stay there throughout the entire thing, before, during, and afterward, you won't put on any weight. But if you go by the ice cream shop thinking about eating 100 gallons, but you don't eat any, and you're all upset about not eating the ice cream, and you're so afraid of the ice cream, you'll put on the weight anyway. Just
yeah. I think I've heard this one. Maybe from you before.
Maybe.
I think you're my resident Abraham quote in my life. So I think you and my friend Brian, he's amazing too. I definitely, one of the two of you that said it. One of the two of you.
But the first time I read that on the air was about 2 years ago, when my friend Wendy Dillard, who's also had a weight issue that she's dealt with over the years, and I were talking about it. And I read that segment to her, and she says, I'm sure I read that because she's an Abraham expert. Talk about being an Abraham expert. She knows Abraham backward and forward. She says, I'm sure I read that, but you know what? I don't remember reading it. I clearly blocked it out in my mind because I wasn't ready to hear it, and I didn't want to hear that message. Boy, I mean, she just captured it there in one sentence. Yeah. It was so well done. And then she followed up. She actually introduced it around that point in time, what she ended up calling Project Body, which was for her project of getting herself in a better vibrational space so that she could lose the weight that she wanted to lose. And she ended up coming up with a very interesting strategy. I never heard how it played out because she ended up leaving the podcast before she completed her project. But what she did was she had done every diet known to mankind. She knew them all backward and forward. She had done all the research. She had read all the scientific articles, all the medical journals. She knew the subject. She knew it better than any of the top, Weight Watchers. She knew it better than they did. And what she had finally concluded was what she needed to spend more time doing was focusing on her inner being and listening to whatever messages her inner being was giving her about food and food issues. So here's a pattern that she would follow. She would it'd be like early afternoon, and she was feeling a little peckish and wanted to have. I want to have some pizza. Oh, hold on a moment. Ask the inner being. Inner being, can I have some pizza? And sometimes her inner being would say, no, you've had enough today. Or sometimes it would say, yes, you can have one slice. Or, it would be a different answer each time. And then she'd go with whatever the answer was. And the last bit of anecdotal evidence I had from her was she hadn't done any dieting during this time. She was just listening to inner being. And for the first time in years, she was losing a pound at a time, a pound at a time, a pound at a time. Just by listening to inner being. Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
But do you know the crazy thing? The crazy thing, and this follows on from your chat earlier about placebo and Dr. Joe's work. Just the fact that she had belief in it working means it's going to work.
Yes. Very much.
That's it.
Yeah.
And not a superficial, I want to believe in it, I hope. No, her belief in it, that level of certainty that my inner being is going to give me that guidance, means that in that moment, she keeps slipping into the timeline of inner being giving her that guidance, inner being giving her that guidance, and her following through. She was literally surfing the waves of maintaining an alignment with the outcome. So I, right here and now, am claiming that she was successful.
I'm sure she was.
And as I claim it, then I'm aligned with you here in this moment, the quantum potential of that timeline where she was successful. And that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool too. I have to say. A couple comments from our live streamers I wanted to share. First, Jeffrey saw the podcast I did with Abby this morning. He says, it was amazing. Thank you for introducing me to another shamanic therapist. You're welcome, Jeffrey. Glad to do it. Josephine says, he just signed up for Gaia TV. Are you a Gaia TV subscriber? I'm not, but I wanted to see if you were one.
I've seen a couple of stuff. I just find it to be a bit cheesy. I've been guided to a couple of good things that I maybe want to watch, but I find it to be a bit cheesy so far.
Yeah, but some of it, I haven't decided to subscribe either. But she says she was watching an episode of Deep Space. It was really interesting. They talked about how some ancient civilizations may have had contact with extraterrestrials. And they mentioned the possibility of a space ark similar to Noah's Ark. Now, she isn't asking any question here, but interesting speculation. What do you think of the speculation?
I'm with it 100%. I believe it. If you look at, I started off my journey 20 years ago with metaphysics and then mindset. And then the spirituality end of it was obviously the last sort of five years or so. Right. But part of the metaphysics was this whole thing of looking at the facts and branching them, like overlapping them. So when you look at anthropology, not the filtered stuff, but the actual stuff, and you look at, for example, the Dogon tribe in Mali, and the fact that they had charts of the stars, star systems that weren't the maps of the Sirius B star system. They had our solar system mapped out correctly before Galileo was making telescopes in the 1600s. So how did that happen?
Pretty cool.
When you start to look even at the genealogy of Homo sapiens, it's not explained by evolution. There are jumps where there has to have been it just doesn't make sense. I mean, evolution works in a plant gets affected by its environment and therefore its seeds make it stronger, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't become a completely different plant. It can evolve in its form, but not its type. And there are, even when you look into, if you look in I think it's the Enuma Elish, which the stories of the Genesis, Exodus, the original biblical stories, there are variations of that don't have the same simplification that you experience with the Bible, Where in the Bible, where you see the word God, there are different names. So you've got Eloh, which is singular, Elohim, which is plural, Adonai, and different phrases. And then when you map that over the stories over with the Enuma Elish, so when you take the story of Utnapishtim, which is exactly the same story as Noah, but was written 10,000 years earlier on clay tablets. And there's another story that actually makes more sense and talks about people from the sky, the Anunnaki and stuff. So I think if you look dispassionately at all of these things and have a bit of an open mind, you get to a point where you have to ask some questions and realize that in the very least, what we've been told or what's popularized, probably it doesn't stand up to the test of examination in those instances.
I think you're right about that. There are large gaps in history that don't get explained very well or just get ignored. Just, you can't explain it, you just pretend it's not there. It's very simple.
I think the exploration of these questions gets a bad rap because there are some kooks that, by kooks I mean people that have interesting perspectives and do them very loudly, but don't present them in a way that are amenable to people that perhaps aren't as open to new ideas. Mm-hmm. So if I'm to scientifically, for example, present to you the fact that even with today's technology, they cannot replicate the pyramids. They can't do it. They can't produce the maths. They can't do the alignment with the star systems. They're unable to do it. So how was that done 30, 40,000 years ago? Or they talk about using roller blocks of wood and slave labor. There was a documentary I saw about 20 years ago, 25 years ago in England, where there were these anthropologists or whatever, archaeologists, that were like, oh yeah, we're going to use the ancient tools we've used to remake the pyramids. They couldn't do it based on their ideas about what it was. And the precision with which the stone and measured, and how are they going to map it up with the stars in Orion's belt for the...
Oops, we got a freeze up here from Daniel. Hopefully that's going to clear up pretty quickly. Well, while Daniel is reconnecting, hopefully soon, I'll take a moment to do a little bit of housekeeping here and remind people who are not yet subscribers to become subscribers. And second time I'm doing it today, so I think I'm good at it by now. Very simple, though. Most of you are subscribers. We love the fact that you are. But if you're not and you aren't sure how to do it, go to the homepage of our website, loatoday.net. You'll see instructions at the top of the page for your device, for the one that you're connecting with, on how to do it. And then in addition to that, make sure that you check us out on YouTube, and you can subscribe there as well. And we will be glad to have you both ways as a subscriber because, hey, we love having you tune in 5 days a week. There's Daniel. He's back again.
Oh, where did I cut off on my tirade about?
It kind of started to break up, so I can't tell you exactly where it was. But you're about a third of the way into the story, so maybe tell the story again.
Oh yeah, so just basically, watched the documentary about 25 years ago when I was back in England about archaeologists that were trying to use what they believed to be the technology available at the time to recreate the pyramids, and they were unable to do it. It was ridiculous. They were like, "Oh yeah, we're going to use water and sand to cut the rock," but the rock was cut with precision. Like even like lasers from today wouldn't be able to do it, something like that. And then the measure, oh, we did this, and they didn't even address the alignment with the star systems, the geometric alignment, which also, by the way, if memory serves me correct, lines up with the structures in Cydonia on Mars. It all lines up. Giza, Sardonia, and Orion's belt. Don't quote me on that. I'm not quite sure if that one's been checked, but I'm 99% sure that matches up to. And even when you look at Cydonia.
How does alignment work there? Because the Earth and Mars do not orbit the sun at the same rate. So I'm not sure.
No, but there's something to do with it's to do with like a precession, when a particular combination of stars are there that matches up to do something to do with Orion or some kind of interstellar event. They line up a certain way. I could dig back into my archives and get you some data on that.
Okay.
But there's a lineup. There's a lineup.
I'll check when you get a chance to check into that. I mean, I don't claim one way or the other to know anything about what all this extraterrestrial stuff is about. I know that I look up in the sky, I see the stars. I know that we have space programs. I believe that the space programs are real, that they're not enacted on a stage in Hollywood. But beyond that, I can't tell you a whole lot. I know what I've been told. That's about it.
And to be honest, well, I've not been to space. I've not met any aliens. So I don't know if it's true or not either. But what I do know is there's enough evidence to ask the question and enough evidence for me to reject what I've been told. So I don't know which one is true, but what you've told me definitely doesn't add up. This one makes a bit more sense. Is it the truth? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But I do know when something is definitely poo-poo.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Definitely poo-poo.
And it's fun to speculate on it. I mean, partly because we have people like SpaceX and so forth who are actually planning to go to Mars. You know, so there's going to be some discovery along these lines. They're going to land on the planet and they're going to report back either that the only thing they could find were the two roving robots that were placed on the planet over the last 15 years or something like that. And on the other hand, they're going to report whether or not the slave colonies are there. You know, if they can tell us that the slave colonies are there, then we know, oh, okay, that conspiracy theory was correct. And if there are no slave colonies, and well, that one kind of goes by the board. So we'll just find out one way or the other. It'll be straightforward.
Evidence speaks louder than anything. And I just, for me personally, if someone produced irrefutable evidence to me today that everything that I thought was true about this stuff was poppycock, then thank you very much for making my word a bit better. I'm not married to anything but the truth as it is given to me. And demonstrated
and as you're able to find it too, because you play a role in that. I mean, thinking back to the woman
definitely
complaining that she wanted to have it easy, as she described it.
Yeah.
She just didn't want to have to put anything into it. She didn't want to have to learn anything. Well, learning is actually half the fun. Learning is that journey we talk about, right? You know, the journey is the most important part. When you're doing the learning, I mean, Jeffrey liked the interview I did earlier this morning with Abby. I learned so much in that. I loved it. It was great. And that's what I hope for from every single episode that I do. So, I mean, I kind of would feel sorry for somebody who wants it so easy that they don't want to learn anything. What are they going to do with it?
But this is again, it comes down to this whole thing from a mental perspective, at least, not to talk of other levels, but, you know, that's mental degradation. You're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. If we look at the law of nature as a collective agreement that we can have some framework on, if something in nature is not growing, it is dying. If I am not growing and expanding in any way, then that part of me is dying. So if I'm not, my telomeres aren't growing, that's when we die. That's when the telomeres, you know, they stop. My mind isn't learning anything, it will slow down and die. Same with my spirit. If my spirit and energy bodies aren't growing, then they're dying too. So from a mental perspective, anyone that's saying, I want it easy, I don't want to learn,
if all you wanted to do is sit on the couch and do nothing, have fun. That's the best I can think of.
Yeah. And if that's what you're into, that's what you're into, right? Nobody's forcing anyone that they have to do things a different way. Just saying that you're missing out, bro. You're missing out. And I just want to just quickly, you did say about time. I just want to say, from a timelines and quantum perspective, every conceivable option that's available for us to conceive as humans does exist. The second that we conceive of it, it becomes a quantum potential. And then the depth of belief that we carry to it and the amount of alignment we have with it brings it into being. I haven't put the work into creating a definitive reality where I get to meet aliens. I don't care about it that much. I'm just exploring from my present time-space reality, my relationship to those facts. So when I say whether it's real or not, I'm talking about this current time-space reality that I'm experiencing and considering how real that is for me here and now. Could I make it real? Yes, I could make it real. Am I prepared to put the work in to do that? No, because I don't care about it that much. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
It's a great point because so often we like speculating about stuff. It's fun to speculate. And people in general speculate about stuff, and the stuff doesn't always show up in their lives in any other way. Why? For the very reason you just gave. You don't care that much about it. I mean, if you're not going to care about something, why would you expect it to show up more often? Right?
You don't care about me. I'm not showing up for you.
That'd be an interesting strategy, wouldn't it? You see those all the time on Facebook, right? The people complaining about the former SP who they don't want to have anything to do with anymore, and the person keeps coming back and coming back and coming back. But I'm not focusing on them. Well, why do you keep talking about the fact that they keep coming back, coming back, coming back? Was that like by accident? Did that you just kind of trip and spit that out? What happened?
Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it's kind of like with the person who was complaining that the coronavirus pandemic ruined all this progress he had made, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thought that occurred to me just now was, okay, so we already went over the fact that he was very externally focused, that he wasn't doing any internal focus. But you kind of add on to that, how often, even in your external focus, did you talk about things going viral? Mm-hmm. I mean, anyone who's ever talked about that can't complain that they attracted a coronavirus. Their vibration's pretty close.
and the thing is, again, going to the facts, I'm talking about this dispassionately. Again, I mean no disrespect to people who are deeply being impacted by this, because now billions of people are being impacted by this. But at its core, without the emotional charge, we're not dealing with something that we didn't have before. Yes, the transmission of it, what do they call it when it can be transmitted?
Infectious? I'm not sure what you mean.
The infection, the level of flexibility, the contagious element of it. Yeah, it is more contagious.
Okay.
Yes. But in terms of the emotional, the energetic, the response that we've had as a globe, more people suffer from other things. More people suffer and die from other things. But our response has been, whoa, we don't know, we don't understand this, we're not experienced with this, this is new. Fear, 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 stop it transferring, which I get. But for me, you can make sensible choices and not being fear.
Mm-hmm.
We can make sensible choices to stop the virus transmitting and infecting more people by staying stationary, social distancing, increasing hygiene, taking better care of the immune system. But when I'm doing that from a space of fear, I'm not actually getting any of the positive results that I want. I'm actually compounding the other end of it.
Right.
So, it goes back to when it's raining, wear your raincoat, but do it because it's a sensible thing to do, not out of fear. And that's when we're going to start having, I think, more positive results. When the fear factor drops, that's when we'll drop it. Vaccines, emergency protocols, none of that is going to do it if there's still the infection of fear underneath it, because that's just going to perpetuate more of that which we fear, because fear is a very, very, very powerful energy.
I stumbled on something the other day. I was just doing some general research, partly because I'm reaching out more to potential people to interview here on the show, and getting some people. I got somebody this morning, obviously. Finding some very interesting people. We have somebody coming up on Monday who's going to join Louis and Ioana and myself. His name is Dr. Mark Sirkis, and he is an alternative, not an allopathic, but a homeopathic type physician. And he's going to talk to us about vitamin C and vitamin D, because there's been a whole controversy with that, fake news because vitamin C doesn't work and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to kind of look at, okay, what's the research of this thing? What does it actually tell us? And that's going to be kind of fascinating to look into. But also I ran across something that I can't remember where I saw it, but it was a course offered by Johns Hopkins University for people who want to have an introduction to epidemiology, which epidemiology, of course, that's the study of diseases and the how they become infectious and when's it determined that it's a pandemic, and they want to give you kind of an idea of what does an epidemiologist study when they become an epidemiologist. So I figured, okay, I'll watch a few episodes of that, and I watched and I learned something I hadn't really known before, that it makes sense now that I think about it. But one of the first concepts they presented was the concept of an outbreak. An outbreak is where they're always creating graphs and charts and so forth to measure what's happening with any given kind of disease, right? Because they track diseases all over the place. And most diseases they already know about so that they can track what their history is. Flu is a great example. You have more cases of flu during the winter, fewer during the summer. So they can actually graph that out. You get a high point during winter, a low point during summer, and it becomes like a sine wave almost. Mm-hmm. An outbreak is where the number of cases that they have detected exceeds what the graph says should be happening. So it is not number dependent. So you could have 100,000 cases of flu, and as long as you're currently getting 100,000 down to 50,000 up to 100,000, as long as you're staying on that curve, you don't have an outbreak. But if at any point you go above the curve, that's an outbreak. So if you have something like Ebola, which is measured in the hundreds or sometimes in the tens, and you expect to have at point A, you expect to have 16 as your number, and you end up with 20, that's an outbreak. So it's not number dependent. It's dependent on beyond the norm. What's the norm and what's beyond the norm?
So
which is really interesting,
It's just like with recession. And I was mapping out 2008, and I was watching in the media, I was just watching the actual bad start to unfold from the fear being generated. Mm-hmm. So a recession is just when you have negative growth in an economy for 2 quarters.
2 consecutive quarters, yeah.
It could be a 0.1.
That's right.
Or 0.01, that's negative growth. Then your media are allowed to say, oh, recession, or we're bordering on recession. We're 30 days away from recession. And then what happens is that people's response to it, and this is one of the things I love about George Soros's book, The Alchemy of Finance, that speaks about the fact that the observer effect has an effect on the outcome.
Yes.
And so people are looking at it and saying, oh my God, it's a recession. They start behaving like it's a recession.
That's right.
And creates a recession. They stop buying, they hoard. People start to sell their house prices are down. House prices haven't grown. And that's just one metric that they've used to see about whether house prices are growing or not. Then everyone tries to sell at once. That depresses it, supply and demand. And then they've got more houses are crashing. The recession's worse. Oh, banks are freezing.
That's exactly what happens, though. You've mapped it out beautifully. In fact, you mentioned the economic cycle, growth and recession and so forth. They almost always measure that against what they call GNP, or actually GDP, gross domestic product. And with GDP, you have basically 3 different components. The biggest component these days is government spending. So if government spending decreases, you can actually get a recession if everything else holds steady. If government spending goes through the roof, you have growth.
Yeah. It's like, for example, just the fact that I think they pumped 2 trillion in one go, and then another 800 billion, and I heard another 480 billions going to small businesses. That 3 trillion that goes into the economy bumps it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It staves off the word recession, and therefore in people's minds stops the reality of recession.
Well, I'll tell you something. Before I knew Law of Attraction, before I started doing the LOA Today podcast, I used to do a podcast on the name of it was the Freedom News Hour, and I did it. It wasn't a podcast so much; it was an online radio show that I did on the Progressive Radio Network, and we still have our show still runs on PRN as well. This was about a year or 2 after the Great Recession is when we were doing this. We did it for about 2 or 3 years. It was me and Bill G, who was a co-host here on this show, and a third guy named Bill Westmiller. The 3 of us did this show. And most of the time, we covered a lot of stuff, but most of it was about monetary systems and monetary policy. And one of the things all 3 of us were concerned about with 2008, 2009 was TARP. Do you remember TARP? TARP was the bailout for the banks and the corporations that were too big to fail. Yeah. It's like an $800 to $900 billion bailout. And we were concerned about it.
They bought out banks in England too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had similar in England.
Yep. Yeah. It affected the entire planet in a variety of different ways. And the various central banks responded in very similar ways to the way the Federal Reserve did. But what they did was they did something that in prior generations would have called monetizing the debt. And what that means is you take stuff, bad debt that has gone bad and won't be paid back. You take it away from the lender and we replace it with new money that the Federal Reserve just created. What that has a tendency to do is expand the money supply quickly. And one thing that has almost universally throughout as much recorded history as we can reach, anytime the money supply has increased dramatically, it has resulted in inflation. So our big concern was there was going to be this big inflation spike, and that the market was basically going to punish the Fed for doing this through either there could have been just a plain straightforward inflation, or the bond market could have crashed, or the stock market could have crashed. I mean, there were any number of different events that could happen that would signal this whole process was happening. I was looking back at it mentally recently, and I realized none of those things happened. What happened was we had this ongoing 12-year buying spree. So the free market, the stock market in this particular case, did something it had never done before. It took a monetary expansion and ignored it. And that's groundbreaking. Now, that doesn't sound like much to the average person, but when you know monetary theory, you realize that is absolutely groundbreaking, because basically it's saying we've thrown out the old paradigm and we replaced it with a new paradigm. And that's all based on belief.
And they're doing, I've been studying this. One of the people that I follow is a guy called Jim Rickards, and he speaks about this at length. And is it the World Bank or the IMF, one of the two, are now getting their own central reserve currency that they're getting set to do. So there's going to be a new paradigm to support this paradigm not falling out of bed in the form of shifting that way. So it's like this big merry-go-round that's been used to keep everything propped up. And it's our belief that keeps it going. Like, if we lost belief in it.
That's right.
I mean, most fiat currencies now aren't backed with anything of any substance. It used to be the pound sterling, the UK pound sterling, was because you got a pound of silver was backing it in the central bank, and then it became gold. But that's not the case anymore. It used to be that piece of paper was used to carry and be a medium of exchange for the actual metal that was underneath, or it was copper or gold or silver. Now we don't have that. We've got the promise to pay, which is backed by numbers on the screen. It's our belief that keeps it going.
So it's actually almost even worse, if you want to use the word worse than that. My perspective at the time was that it was worse because it isn't that it's based on nothing. It's actually based on debt. In other words, the more deeply in debt your economy goes, the more money you have, which is like the strangest concept in the world. But that's literally how it works. When the Federal Reserve wants to create money, they create debt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty strange stuff. So yeah, the whole world of finance has been turned on its head and turned on its ear, really. I mean, it doesn't even match anything that was true 100 years ago, let alone 500 years ago. When you have that kind of change in dynamic, it like you said, it means that you've changed the thought process. And I think that's really worth keeping in mind when we're thinking about COVIDs and when we're thinking about how the life has changed and how the future is going to change and so forth. It all happens because we change our thought process. So doesn't it make more sense to focus our attention on what we like instead of continuing to go back to, well, this terrible stuff is happening. All this horrible stuff is happening. I mean, I got a post from a friend of mine who I've known for many, many years, who was complaining about fake news being shut down on Facebook, and what he thought fake news, what they were saying was fake news, he thought was real news and so forth. And he's pushing against this, and other people are pushing against this. I'm saying, well, do you like the result? Keep pushing against that. You're going to get more of that, This is like direct sowing and reaping. He's a Christian, so I use the sowing and reaping thing. This is sowing and reaping that you're dealing with right here. Do you like what you're reaping? Then keep sowing it. But if you don't like it, I suggest changing it.
No, take something else.
Yeah, right. Anything else.
It's all fun and games.
It is. It's good. It's all good.
It is all fun and games. It is all fun.
And we're learning. We're all learning, which is a good thing. I did have one other thought about Josephine's thing. She said she finished up her comment about the possibility of a space ark similar to Noah's Ark. So I was imagining, okay, well, if the story is the same as the story of Noah, does that mean that this space ark had two of everything? Like 2 mosquitoes, 2 COVID virus germs, I mean, how far does it go?
I think on the Fisherman's story gave a bit more of an understanding because it's sort of like the spirit. I think it's like the spirit of the thing, which looks like maybe like they stored the DNA of it more than the physical thing. Well, that's what the speculation was. But with all of these things, just asking ourselves. I think for me, one of the things I love about the story of Noah is holding this idea that if I had to pack up everything now, how much stuff would I actually carry in my life and what would I leave behind? Like, how full is my life of stuff that wouldn't be important enough for me to take on a boat? And having the opportunity to assess, well, do I want to fill my life up with stuff that I don't really want? Or do I maybe want to keep my life populated with stuff that actually means something? That's what it is for me.
That's a great point. I mean, it's not an exercise that I would recommend spending a lot of time on because I don't like focus on lack. But if you had to pick, what would you lack?
Yeah. Or you can flip it the other way. What would you prefer to take with you? You could do it that way.
Abundance. That's my choice. I'll pick that one in a heartbeat. That's easy.
I mean, you could look at when everyone thought this virus was the end of the world immediately, and one went to go and buy toilet paper.
Yes.
Like, nobody bought water and canned food.
My wife and I remember the first time we were in the supermarket and they were starting to empty the shelves and we're looking around at everybody and this blanket of fear had descended and we're looking at each other saying, what's going on here? What is happening here? Our minds couldn't calculate and make sense out of what we were seeing. It took us a moment to realize all these people are in panic mode. And this is a panic that they were going to build really quickly because they were all in panic mode about it. And, well, how are we going to respond to that? And we were just kind of dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Like, how do you respond to people who are clearing the shelves because they're terrified?
And clearing the shelves of something that is not going to save them.
Yeah, right. I mean, how much time do they expect to spend in the bathroom? Anyway, I was curious. Not that curious, but I was curious.
I was like, really? Get some water. And it was funny because here we weren't really affected by the panic buying, but I live next door to a Costco. And there was a number of flights that came in the day before from the US. Because I can see the traffic of people coming in and out from my balcony. From my bedroom window even, I can see. And it was calm. And then there was a load of flights that came in on the Saturday from the US. And then there was a pile up of people before the store even opened up. And within half an hour, they bought out all of the toilet paper in Costco.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And I was watching because I went to go and we needed some other supplies. We didn't need toilet paper. I was like, there's water everywhere. There's canned food. There's dry foods. And everyone... And me and the Mexicans and those of us that live here, we've got the kind of mañana chill, live in the sun vibe. We're like, how much toilet paper do we need? Because I'm going to take some drinking water then. And it was like, we're all talking in Spanish and just like having a good old laugh at the people that like, gotta get toilet paper. Need some toilet paper. Don't want to get trapped here in the restroom when the apocalypse comes.
I never knew the apocalypse was going to be like that. That was not what I originally visualized when I heard the term.
Yeah, it's really funny, like the pictures now, people taking back all the toilet paper for refunds. That's been some of the most hilarious footage for me to see in action.
Joel had a great story that he told yesterday about that. He says his normal pattern is to buy 6 months worth of paper products twice a year. And he bought his 6-month supply 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. So he actually...
Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing. I love it.
That's
perfect timing.
That's a great LOA story. There's another great LOA story that came out of my interview today.
Mm-hmm.
Abby, she's an author. She describes herself as a shamanic psychotherapist, which the first time I ever heard those two words go together. That was a really interesting part. But she also described me, she's a Hay House author. she described to me how she had decided she was going to try to start her own podcast. And she had tried, I think she said 4 different times to record the first episode and had run into all kinds of issues, and including being able to keep her energy up because she was doing it herself. She wasn't doing it like I do it with you guys. And she was just blown away with how difficult it was and how challenging it was. And so she finally threw up her hands and says, okay, forget this. I just want to be on somebody's podcast somewhere. And 4 hours later, she got my email.
I love it.
I mean, perfect.
You can't make this stuff up.
My comment to her was, really, this law of attraction stuff is all baloney,
Yeah.
I mean, hilarious. Holy cow. That's crazy. And that's not the first time that's happened, by the way, with me, with emailing people to be on the podcast. Back when Cindy Chavez first came on, I brought her on, Wendy Dillard, who I mentioned earlier, and another guy, Tom. He was also on for quite some time. The 3 of them came on within about a 2 or 3 week period. I sent emails to all 3 of them on a Sunday in mid to late November of 2017, I think it was. And every single one of them had been working on some aspect or wanting to do a podcast at the time, on the day that I sent the emails. Every single one of them. Tom Wells, Wendy Dillard, and Cindy Chavez. And Cindy, of course, is still with me. I mean, wow. Just insane.
That's crazy.
And I have, to this day, it's not like I ever had like a spirit guide saying, okay, send them emails now. There was nothing like that going on, It just, I wanted to change my schedule around. So I went, found a website. The 3 of them were listed on the website. I said, okay, I'll send emails to them. And boom. Crazy. How do you explain it? I don't know. Law of attraction.
I prefer to enjoy it rather than try and explain it.
Yes, I agree with you. Enjoying it's a whole lot better. No doubt.
I prefer to enjoy it rather than explain it. Yeah.
Speaking of enjoying it, I did put in the promo earlier, but I want to emphasize it once more. This is enjoyable. What we do here is fun. I mean, it's a whole lot more fun when we have Alex with her unicorn headphones. That's a whole lot more fun. But still, it's enjoyable.
That. Actually, factually, it's much better with it.
Absolutely, yeah. And so just want to remind you once again, if you're not subscribed, the content's different every episode, but it's fun. It's uplifting. Mm-hmm. It feels good. I mean, especially if you're like our friend there who was working on his vibration by riding the default wave, and then the whole thing crashed with COVID-19. If you're still in that space, hey, we all started at some point. We all were in that space at some point. This is a great show for somebody like that, because you're going to feel good every single day, and you can count on it. You can rely on it. And, oh, by the way, you're also going to learn how to be a conscious creator at the same time in a fun way. It's not going to be a task. It's not going to be a chore. So once again, I want to encourage people to become subscribers, because it pays off. It really does work for you. And plus, we love it too. I mean, let's be perfectly honest, Daniel. We like talking to all of our listeners. We like telling them all the stories and so forth. It's just fun, isn't it?
And it's expansive for us too. I mean, I certainly get something out of it, whether it's one of the guests that are coming on, whether it's something that you share with me, whether it's an insight that Alex gives. Like, I always come away from the show expanded and having my life made a little bit better by what I've taken on by being on the show.
Absolutely. I've grown incredibly just by doing the show for 7.5 years. And I hope I do it for another 77.5 years. That's how good it is. If I got co-hosts like you, I'll probably be doing it until, the 3rd lifetime from now. So it won't be difficult.
I'm sure we're doing it that way in another timeline.
So, I forgot to do the closing message. So become a subscriber. If you aren't sure how to do it, go to loatoday.net. There it is. So thank you much, Daniel. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. You want to check out tomorrow, Rita and Linda have something really interesting planned. There's a book that I had never heard of. Let me see if I can find the name of the book. But Rita wanted to bring it up on the show, and I guess Linda is reading it right now on Kindle, I think she said. It's called Working with the Law, 11 Truth Principles for Successful Living by Raymond Hollywell. Do you know that one?
No, but I think tomorrow I will actually be able to catch live. I've blocked it out on my diary. This past couple days have been a bit bonkers, but I do have it blocked out for tomorrow. I do my best to catch on live. So
This is going to be a good one to catch. And apparently, from what Rita said, Spirit reminded her to look at it again, even though it's an old book that she's read before. So there's something in it that at least some of our listeners need to hear. So there's a reason to do it.
The oldies tend to be the goodies.
Yep. So there we go. Well, thank you, Daniel. Have a great week, great weekend. And I'll be watching for you in the live stream. And love everything that you do. I mean, I got to really thank you. Since you've come on board, you've helped elevate my life. You've helped to elevate the lives of our listeners. So I'm glad it's a good trade that you're also getting the expansion too.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. It's good stuff. Really, really groovy.
So thank you much. Thank you, live streamers. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everyone.